We have made it to Friday, Manna Gatherers. Some weeks it feels like my wagon is dragging by the time Friday rolls around. And the weekend is welcomed with wide and open arms, especially a weekend like we have coming up in our household. We have no plans on this Saturday, and that feels so amazing, so good. Nowhere to be, so we can just let the day carry us where it will, and maybe, fingers crossed, hands prayed, all the things, that will even mean we get to sleep in on Saturday past 7 a.m. That's my hope. Such good possibilities are endless with an unscheduled and unhurried day before us. So, today, on Friday, let's get to Joshua 24:15, and today I will be reading from the Common English translation of the Bible. But if it seems wrong in your opinion to serve the Lord, then choose this day whom you will serve. Choose the gods whom your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live. But, says Joshua, my family and I will serve the Lord. Question: why don't people choose to serve the Lord? You probably have a million answers, as do I. I am not, though, talking about lukewarm, almost Christians, to borrow a phrase from John Wesley, who willingly bear the name of Christian but don't really put the practices or the teachings of Jesus into practice, much less do they darken the doors of the church, except maybe on Christmas and Easter. No. Why don't other people, the 60% of people who are not Christian, who adamantly say that I will not bear the name of Christ, who choose to serve other gods or no God and want absolutely nothing to do with the Judeo-Christian God? Why do these folks not choose to serve our Lord? What made these kinds of people get to their decision? Well, here's one thought. As often as I do, I'm going to reference a podcast. Y'all, I spend a lot of time in my car traveling between downtown Columbia to Irmo, and back down to Columbia. And I get at least 2, if not 3 podcast episodes in every single day when I listen to them on 1.5 speed. So I like a podcast called The Liturgist. Very churchy word. The Liturgist podcast. Liturgist. Liturgist podcast. It's a very thought-provoking Christian podcast that probes very deep and real questions, tackling head-on some of our long-held beliefs and traditions, and tackling head-on some very hard-to-believe stuff that we profess in our faith. I feel like when I listen to it, I'm at a round table discussion of contemporary theologians kicking around different theories, having good conversations, and even as different voices disagree or propose ideas that step all over my toes and make me think differently about some of my long-held beliefs in a new way. I love it all. I like this kind of mental and spiritual gymnastics. It is exciting to me and part of why I do what I do. Anyhow, in one of their recent episodes, a phrase stuck out to me. A panelist said, "Sometimes our stories of faith bypass reality." Sometimes it seems as though our stories of faith bypass reality. I let that phrase sit with me for several days. I think there are a lot of people who have not experienced God in the here and now who feel this way. That somehow our faith, our Christian faith, is full of stories that completely gloss over and make light of human suffering and sorrow and struggle by saying, well, it will all be well in the end. Buck up. If not in the here and now, then, my friend, then definitely an eternity where there will be no pain and no sorrow and no suffering. In this, I hear hope. But others may hear a God who completely ignores or puts a little band-aid over human pain and suffering. Or still others see this kind of faith as a crutch or the opiate of the masses, as Marx said, as a way to simply comfort those in times of suffering and struggle rather than to confront and change why or how people suffer and struggle. Many want to see God do something about all that is wrong in our world, myself included. And they don't see a God doing this. They don't see a God who is reversing the very disproportionate way things are in our way. Or they don't see relief coming to those who suffer. Or they don't see peace overturning the corrupt powers that be. All of these things Jesus did promise, but some who do not choose Jesus see that the faith of Jesus has been maybe watered down to a little more of a promise of a little bit of comfort in this world that totally ignores or bypasses addressing the real problems of this world in any real or substantial or significant way. But I think that if we choose this day to serve our Lord, that we will serve the God. Let me start over for a minute. I think if we choose this day to serve the God who Joshua chose to serve, if we really, really choose and give our lives to this God with everything that we are, well, then our faith stories are not watered down. Things do change. Human lives change, and human suffering and pain and sorrow are not bypassed, but they are taken seriously because we worship a God who weeps with us. John 11:35. We worship a God who knows our suffering. Psalm 56:8. We worship a God who hears our cries. Psalm 34:17. And we worship a God who longs to deliver us from our suffering in the here and now. Job 36:15. It is up to those of us who choose, who bear the name Christian, who choose to give our lives to Christ, who choose to serve the Lord, to serve in such a way that makes these promises and this knowledge of our God, a God who weeps, a God who knows our suffering, a God who hears our cries, and a God who longs to delivers us, to make these things about our God as much of a reality as the suffering, the struggle, the sickness, the sorrow is very real to so many. To not bypass these hard moments, but to sit with people in them and to draw from our stories of faith that also rest with some of these very real questions and doubts, but to also not forget, but to draw from our stories of faith that confront head on the suffering, struggle, sickness, and sorrow that is part of the human experience, without making light of it, without bypassing it, without ignoring it, without even minimizing it, without brushing it off. To just cry out to God whatever we feel we are going through. Some things like, it's not hard, God. You can say that because it is hard. It's not fair, God. You can say that and cry that out because it's not fair. Or I'm angry, I'm lonely, I'm tired. Whatever. The stories in our Bibles do not teach us to suppress such things. Maybe how we interpret them does, but the Bible reflects a range of human emotion and human problems, not bypassing anything. So to serve the Lord isn't to bypass the bad and the ugly we encounter in life and to pretend like they're not real or they didn't happen. And to serve the Lord is to serve the Lord throughout the ups and the downs of life. not just when everything is a-okay and grand. If that were the case, God's people may have never gotten to this point of beautiful covenant renewal in Joshua 24 we see, or Joshua's wise words of challenge to us, especially in this verse 15. But in order to do this, we must, as people who choose to serve our Lord, leave room for mystery, which means letting go of control, of letting go of our own understanding, our own interpretation of things, of letting go of pretending we have it all together when really we're going through a lot. People need to hear these stories too from the people of faith. I am still ruminating all of this, but I do think our non-Christian brothers and sisters, they do get hung up on using faith to water down very real experiences of suffering, of sorrow, of sickness and struggle. So maybe we who have chosen to serve our Lord, maybe we've misrepresented the stories in our Bibles, because all of the bad and the ugly, it's right there alongside the good stories of our faith. So let's honor that life, well, it isn't always pretty, but still, God is God. That's good news I think we have to share. All right, I will see you on Monday.